Liverpool have been heavily linked with numerous players in recent weeks, I think it's fair to say. I seen Jamie Carragher did his piece this morning and mentioned we need 6 players in the summer, so there's your starters. But yeah, 3 of whom could all come from Bournemouth, potentially, because it's a gift and a curse, isn't it, for Bournemouth, because they're performing so well that it makes them obviously, climb up the league table and, eye up Europe and all that sort of stuff, but it also makes you think, actually, half our team could just be dismantled here when the big heads come calling. But yeah, we'll start with Milos Kerkez. Again, rumours just do not stop. I googled his name earlier on, and it's just absolutely filled with links to Liverpool. Like, honestly, there's different stories, left, right and centre. But it does feel as though he is the one who's emerging massively as the front runner, as the left-back option.
Yeah, Andy Robertson said on Scotland Duty, didn't he, a couple of weeks back, that, we've been linked with every left-back in the world. And I think that was his sort of deprecating way of trying to play it all down and just saying it's part and parcel playing for a club like Liverpool. They are constantly looking to improve the squad. But I think, it starts to crystallise that, in fact, it's not every left-back in the world being linked. It is, in fact, now only one. And it does feel like Milos Kerkez has emerged as the front runner in that position. And I think given his age, I might have said this on a previous show, but given his age and the step up from Bournemouth to Liverpool with respect, he wouldn't necessarily be going straight in to become first choice at Liverpool, and there's absolutely no concern about that. It wouldn't be an issue of him not being good enough or anything like that. I think keeping Robertson around as a experienced, capable left back who would certainly rival Kerkez for the first choice, I think that would be a really good place for Liverpool to be in next season, with the view to Kerkez eventually becoming undisputed first choice as he progresses and improves and gets more experience. So I think that'd be a really good way for Liverpool to be in, really good shape for Liverpool to be in the left back situation. There's talk of Kerkez costing 40 million upwards. I don't think that would make Liverpool blink, really. That tends to be the going rate for a player who they think can improve their first team. And if they can sell Tsimikas for X amount of money, that would offset that considerably, but maybe at least a quarter, you'd imagine. So yeah, it does feel as though this is one that could materialise now, and it wouldn't necessarily mean that Robertson's days are numbered. No,
if I was Andy Robertson, obviously your first thought, your first sort of instinct is just to want to play as many games as you possibly can, and that never stop happening. But if you were realistic about it as well, you know that at some point Liverpool are going to go and sign one to refresh, like he clearly does. I'd be delighted if it was Kerkez, because whilst he's brilliant and I think a real sort of star of the future at the top echelons of the game, like, he is 21, so he's still so inexperienced that if they were signing like a plug and play 25, 26-year-old, that was Rob, I'd be thinking, this doesn't look good for me, like, the writing's on the wall a little bit. But I think a 21-year-old who's kind of broke out a touch at Bournemouth, really, and you mentioned the step up there, I think you're right as well. You could look at that in a different way and go, well, actually, I could still be first choice here. And still vie for that at least, and he could learn from me a little bit. Like, it almost feels like a potential positive signing for Robbo. Yeah, and we seen it earlier in the season, didn't we, where for however long it was, there was genuine uncertainty as to who slot favourite at left back. Tsimikas was rotating with Robertson more than he ever had, really, across his 4 or 5 years at the time at Liverpool. This one could be a similar thing, really, where you're not really sure who's going to start game to game, and there's no clearly defined pecking order. And I think Kerkez could certainly learn a lot from Robertson. 10 years between them, but very similar sorts of left backs in terms of absolutely motoring up and down the flank. Looking to create assists, aggressive, front-footed, but also very defensively sound as well. So I think that would be a really good place for Liverpool to be in if they do bring him in. Maybe look to move Tsimikas on where he can play a bit more regularly, get a decent enough fee for him that can help offset the fee for Kerkez, and then go from there. Yeah, I like that a lot. You've got 6 assists this season so far in the Premier League and 2 goals as well. One of them goals is a beauty up in Newcastle. A lot to like about the player, there really is. And like I say, I think that dynamic of then having really young sort of potential at left back. Whilst I think he will definitely play a role because he's brilliant. Whilst also owning Andy Robertson, I love that. Absolutely love that for us. Dean Huijsen next. Obviously, another very, very highly spoken of defender at Bournemouth. 19 years of age. Just feels as though his trajectory is just up and up and up. And for Bournemouth, it's going to be difficult for them because, as I mentioned, it does feel, to use that well-trodden path of a joke, they are ripe for cherry picking. However, for Kerkez, they can demand a certain fee and they can bend and flex and they can negotiate. And the one we're going to talk about in a minute, likewise as well. But there's a release clause on Dean Huijsen, so he is there for taking, basically.
The only thing that sort of is a little bit of I wouldn't say red flag, but a little bit of a thing that sticks in my head with him is general lack of game time. I think, maybe 40 senior appearances. But if you look at how far he's come during that time, he had maybe 8 or 9 appearances for Juventus, and then the season he's had this year at Bournemouth, he's played himself into the Spain reckoning already, and he's only 19. That's seriously impressive. And you look at how well Bournemouth have done this season, and he's been a big part of that. Liverpool will need to replace Virgil van Dijk at some stage. They probably need a centre-back now. So there's a lot of boxes that are being ticked there. Like you say, Bournemouth feel like a club who Liverpool could deal with and not encounter too many stumbling blocks.
The Richard Hughes element greases the wheels of all this as well.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was I had a conversation last year with someone about Sepp van den Berg, and they were using Huijsen as sort of a barometer for his valuation. So they're clearly aware of him, what he can do and how good he is and how good he can be. So, and I do think Liverpool like release clauses as well. Yeah. I guess most clubs like release clauses as a general thing. It sort of eliminates the need for weeks and weeks of negotiation. But once you establish that he is your player you want to go for, in the same way that they've done with Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister and a few others down the years, you can just set the wheels in motion quite quickly, really. Yeah,
but in terms of due diligence, background checks, knowing the player and being aware of his capabilities and his qualities and the good and bad of it, we do feel like we are perfectly situated and perfectly placed with Richard Hughes in situ because Italian upbringing, Juventus, and he spent some time at Rome as well, came through the ranks at Juve. Obviously, we know Richard Hughes has got good links to Serie A. They spent this season at Bournemouth. It just feels... If Liverpool are looking to identify a young up-and-coming centre-back who can do a job now, but also, as you say, future-proof and future plan for the eventual departure of Van Dijk, he feels like a serious option.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of a concern now, isn't there, with Liverpool's centre-backs in terms of there's a clearly defined first choice, Konate and Van Dijk, of being exceptional as a pairing. 13 clean sheets for Liverpool now this season, which is a joint level with Forest. Kwanzaa not quite pushed on as you thought he might have done, for considering what he did last season, but he's still a real player for the future, isn't he? And he's only 22. Question marks over Joe Gomez. What happens there? 10 years at Liverpool. Might he want to go and be first choice somewhere else? Injuries have never really been too far away from his Liverpool story. So they do need a centre-back, and it's just a case of, like you say, are you looking to bring in someone who's going to immediately rival Konate at the age of 24, 25, or a bit of a project who can sort of, play his way into the team over the coming years? And there are probably a few better than Dean Huijsen to be doing that, to be honest. No. Certainly in the Premier League, at least.
Exactly. He's got that Premier League experience behind him now. I do wonder, as you mentioned there, if Liverpool were aware of him 12, 18 months ago, whatever, whether they wanted to see what it looked like in the Premier League first, and they've got that now, and it looks pretty good, to be honest. Antoine Semenyo is the next one I want to touch on. A report from Miguel Delaney of The Independent has suggested Liverpool are among the clubs taking a closer look at him. Arsenal, Manchester United also mentioned. So again, good luck Bournemouth this summer. They're going to have to be seriously on ground to keep hold of some of their players. But again, comes with the territory when you're punching above your weight. I like him. I like him a lot. At 25, it's not, beyond the realms of possibility Liverpool going to sign a 25-year-old forward. Of course it isn't. I think if he was 21, 22, I'd be more excited personally. But listen, he's had a good career up until this point. Bristol City previously, he scored bags and bags of goals there. Again, I think he's had a really good season at Bournemouth, a key reason as to why they are where they are. 7 goals, 5 assists, 29 appearances. It's to me, and you feel free to have your say on it, it's not screaming, come and get me, those numbers. They're impressive and they're good. And I've really liked what I've seen from him. But I'm just not sure Liverpool take the plunge. It's mentioned in around the £60 million mark. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Miguel's report there, when you have a report, as a bit of a rule of thumb, that names several clubs, normally suggests that the information might be coming from the agent, who is keen to extol the virtues of his clients and let it be known that several clubs are tracking him. So maybe, to what extent Liverpool are looking, I'm sure they have taken a look and have scouts down there, and clearly a good relationship, and they've got people who work for Bournemouth, haven't they, who are now on the staff, not just Richard Hughes. So they will certainly be aware of him, but I'm with you. I couldn't see Liverpool going for someone 25 at that price range without someone leaving, Luis Diaz maybe, a Darwin Núñez. Yeah, just of all the 3 Bournemouth links, this one feels like it might be the one that doesn't get done. I certainly feel like Kerkez will be all systems go at some stage later this year. Huijsen, there's a lot to think. You can see why Liverpool would be interested. This one, probably not as much, but he is a good player whenever I've seen him. No,
again, I'm not disputing that. I do like him a lot, and I feel like a move may well be on the cards for him. I'm just not sure it's a Liverpool move personally.
I mean, you said last week that you did a poll and there'd come back 3 or 4 players that most of your audience thought Liverpool needed. Jamie Carragher, you mentioned that at the Telegraph column today, suggested at least half a dozen.
Yeah.
So, I can't see Liverpool bringing in 6 at, roughly 50 million each. They're going to have to get a little bit creative here or there. And whether they feel that they need Antoine Semenyo at that price, I'd be surprised, to be honest.
Well, so much hinges on outgoings, the contracts still to be decided. Of course it does, but I think as a general rule of thumb, the general consensus seems to be that there is, between 4 and 6 really required this summer, which I'm inclined to agree with, to be honest. From a Liverpool perspective, then you just started touching on it there, really. You think the noises from the club, the noises from the people that you speak to, and that obviously, Kerkez feels like a real potential one. Huijsen likewise, Semenyo not so much.
Yeah, that would be it. If you sort of put it in a 1, 2, 3, that would be the order that I go for. There's so much about Milos Kerkez. As the season has gone on, it started to look more and more like a realistic link, a credible link, and one who Liverpool certainly hold an interest in. And Huijsen, I do like the look of him. Whenever I've seen him, he looks so comfortable in possession. It's so hard to believe he's still a teenager playing at that level. I've seen a pass he played for Spain during the international break, and it was Van Dijk-esque, over the top and put his mate through. I'm not sure who it was to now, but that would be the order for me if I had to sort of name it and give it a podium finish.
I think we're in no smoke about fire territory as well on Kerkez, to be honest. But we'll wait and see. All will be revealed, of course.